Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Nicole Camarda. A proposed cell tower on a parcel of Idaho Endowment Trust land in the middle of the Sawtooth recreation area has people worried that this 190-foot tower will create an eyesore in the popular recreation area. Outdoor reporter Steve Dent details the project from both sides and explains how endowment land is at the heart of this issue.
Before we can get into the Sawtooth Cell Tower project, first we need to understand Idaho Endowment Trust Lands. When Idaho became a state in 1890, it inherited 3.5 million acres from the federal government.
The endowment beneficiary, in this case, the public schools, own the land, but it's really our responsibility, Idaho's responsibility, to manage that land on their behalf.
In fiscal year 2020, endowment lands earned $80 million, including $50 million for public schools. The lion's share of the money came from timber sales, but the Idaho Department of Lands also leases land to cattle ranchers for grazing and other projects like energy or communications. That's where FirstNet comes in, as they plan to build a tower near Stanley to improve coverage for AT&T.
Those first responders will have the communication they need to take care of those emergencies. So that's what the FirstNet is really about. And the other advantage is people will have additional cell phone abilities.
But that plan has been met with backlash. FirstNet wants to construct a 195-foot antenna that will tower above the surrounding trees and be visible from Redfish Lake. Opponents of the tower believe it will be a scar on one of Idaho's most pristine areas.
I don't think that there's ever been a person who's woken up, in those cold Sawtooth mornings, enjoying a cup of coffee and looking out at the scenic beauty of the Sawtooths and said to themselves, you know what? The only thing that would make this better is a cell tower up on that ridge.
A big concern for the locals in Stanley stems from the Sawtooth area being one of 18 dark sky reserves in the country. And while FAA regulations doesn't require lights for towers smaller than 200 feet, there are special circumstances depending on the structure and the location.
That's a very serious concern for a lot of people. The tower is only 4 miles from the Stanley Airport, so that could be a reason to have it lighted if some future date they decide that's a little too close.
The land board listened to Stanley's mayor and the Idaho Conservation League during a July meeting, but they didn't have a public comment period, and they aren't required to by state law.
We do appreciate their comments and what they have to say, but we have to help them understand what our mission is.
This past week, the land board rejected the Idaho Conservation League's petition to take another look at the project. So now IDL will focus on fighting FirstNet's proposal after the state finalizes the lease.
And then it would be timely for us to resubmit that petition, which we have every intention of doing, along with the Sawtooth Interpretive Historical Association and potentially other partners. And so at that point, presuming that our petition for environmental review is accepted, then FirstNet would kick off an environmental review process that would include public input.
But it's important to remember the land doesn't belong to the public, like National Forest land or BLM land. The state looks at it through a different lens, mandated by the Idaho Constitution to secure the maximum long-term financial gain, and this lease would start at $30,000 a year.
We appreciate collaboration as long as people understand our responsibility is to manage the financial return on that land for that endowment beneficiary that owns the land.
Steve Dent, Idaho News 6.
Leasing endowment trust land also has its own process that includes the Idaho Department of Land advertising the sale in a public auction in an effort to get as many bids as possible to maximize profits. But nobody else bid on the land FirstNet wants to build the cell tower on.